Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Criminal Justice Corner. Here at Criminal Justice Corner, we give you the real details surrounding the case, and just in case you find yourself in that same situation, we give you potential actionable advice so that you can potentially get yourself out of it. I'm your host, Dr. Jennifer Matthews. Today, I have with me a very special guest, Arlene. Arlene, can you give us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I was born and raised in a small town in the Midwest, but I spent most of my adult life in Denver, Colorado. And uh, I just, at the age of 27 or 28, I moved out there just to be a free spirit, I guess, and do something I've always wanted to do. And while I was there, I ended up going through a domestic violence situation, two abortions, and I happened to belong to a church that had a lot of support groups. So I ended up, first I went through healing for a lot of these situations, both of these situations, and I ended up facilitating both for battered women and abortion recovery. And then I began to notice there was a crossover between the two, a real
Okay.
connection between abortion and domestic violence. And 30 years later or so, I ended up writing a book um, on that subject. It's called Healing Hidden Bruises. And I am now
Wow.
back in Indiana. Yeah.
That is amazing. You were able to turn your story, which was somewhat of a victim story because you became the victim of your circumstance, you were able to turn it into triumph and help others in that situation.
Right.
That's amazing. I applaud you for your efforts because not
Well,
everyone
thank
is able to tell that story. Not everyone is able to have that same outcome. So I applaud you for that.
well, thank you.
Awesome. So today we're going to dive into a case that a lot of people know, some do, some don't, but I think it's a story that's still relevant to this day because it's still in the news. So we're going to talk a little bit about it today, and it is the Menendez brothers. The Menendez brothers are two brothers who we can say killed their parents because they are convicted of this. They are in prison today and they are trying to get released. The courts are trying to make a determination on if they will be released early because they are behind bars. They are convicted of this crime. So we don't have to say allegedly. This is something that they have been convicted of. I've seen several documentaries about them over the years because this is a long time ago that they've killed their parents. They were much younger when it happened. Now they're much older. But what has happened that has made this case relevant in 2025 is Netflix, I believe it's Netflix, has made a documentary about them. So that has revitalized the whole case to people, an audience who might not have known about them when it originally happened. So now the brothers are speaking out about this case. Their families are speaking out about this case, and the new audience members are speaking out about this case. Arlene, what is your take on the Menendez brothers at this point?
Well, at this point, um, I'm I feel bad for them because this happened in 1989, so they've
Okay.
been in prison 30 some years. As for now, as you say, they're trying to get another trial. There can be several ways, several different avenues that this can happen. They can either be resentenced, they
Mm-hmm.
can have clemency, or they can do the habeas corpus. And as far as my personal take, I guess my personal opinion
Okay.
is that they, since this happened back in 1989, Um, at that time, the society wasn't ready to hear a case about boys being raped. It just wasn't heard about, talked about. I read somewhere that they tried to use the battered women's syndrome
Okay.
for them, and it got kicked out because they aren't women. They were
Right.
boys, or males. So if it would have been a case of girls being raped, society could have understood.
Okay.
So, as for now, I do hope, since new evidence has come to light, there has been evidence that a letter that an aunt wrote, I think back in 1988,
Okay.
stating about the abuse. And then also in 2023, there was another case that came to light where the Menudo band, one of their members was 14 at the time, and he was drugged and abused by Jose also. So I'm
Jose, who
just,
is Jose?
yes, he was abused by Jose.
Who is Jose for the listeners?
Jose is the father, Lyle and Eric's father.
Okay, so Jose Menendez.
Jose, yes, Jose Menendez.
Okay,
So
got
I'm
it.
kind of hoping with new evidence. Plus, as you stated, a lot of the family members are coming, almost even on both sides of the family, I hear, are coming to their defense and saying, you know, they've served, their time for this because of all the circumstances. So I am hoping, because of new evidence, that they will be released or at least get a lesser sentence, because right now they stand at life without parole. Um,
Exactly. That was their original sentence, life without the possibility of parole, and it's been over 30 years at this point. So with the documentaries that have been released now in this new decade, there has been, like you said, new light shined on the case, and the brothers are speaking out and they're saying, hey, what our defense was is valid. Different sides of the family are saying that their defense was valid as well. And like you said, there is different corroborating evidence to support what they're saying. And usually that's all that it takes to get a new trial is new evidence. But have all of their appeals been exhausted at this point? That's the question.
all
Do we know
right.
that?
And, well, another thing that's entering into the picture is the whole DA situation in California.
Okay,
Because
what is
after,
that situation?
well, the situation was George Gascon, I think is the pronunciation, was the
Okay.
district attorney of California. He was up for re-election, and he kind of got the ball rolling on retrying the Menendez case, and maybe they should go free and all this stuff. So that was his kind of one of his platforms on the election. Well,
Mm-hmm.
as usual, the country is divided. Everybody has a different opinion. He lost the election. So then, now we have a new DA,
Yes.
Nathan Hockham, I think is his name, or Hockman. And so since Gascon wanted to look like the soft, fluffy, merciful person and
Mm-hmm.
got defeated, Nathan Hokum now says, so he's coming down on the crime and he wants to appear tough on it, and he thinks that they should remain in jail.
Okay.
So he wants them to say that the whole self-defense thing was a lie, to
Right.
accept responsibility, which I believe they have done, me personally.
Okay.
And he wants the parole board to decide, are they a danger to society, and all these kind of things. And so he's kind of, I feel bad for them because they've been through so much for so long, and now they're kind of caught in this political type situation of, with all the turnover of the district attorney and whatever.
Right.
So the Governor Newsom, I guess, could step in, um, and reverse, some of the decisions, or, oppose a new trial, or can either modify or whatever. And I think he could step in for the clemency, if I understand it
Mm-hmm.
correctly. So,
Right.
I think maybe Hokum is just kind of trying to maybe do something or say something to say, well, here, get it off my plate and let somebody else take responsibility for whatever comes down the line. I don't know. That's my opinion.
Yeah, now we know that the DA Gascon, his recommendation is to resentence the brothers to 50 years. So let's just say he does that. Let's say he, let's even say that the brothers agree to that. They would still spend maybe another 15 years in prison. Do you think that would be fair?
Well, by then they
Considering
would
that they
probably
were,
be dead because they are already in their 50s now.
hmm
So to get another 50 years,
no,
they would
15.
more than likely. Oh, 15. I'm sorry, I thought I said
15.
50. I thought, I
No,
wonder if I could
15.
afford that.
Yeah,
15.
so no, he's saying he would resentence them if they agreed that he's proposing resentence them to 50 years versus life. So they've already served 30 plus, and if they agree to 50, then they serve roughly another 15. So do you think that would be fair?
I don't know. Not with the new evidence. If the
Okay.
new evidence really gets heard, and I listened to an interview by Lyle. I think it was, yeah,
Okay.
Lyle, and he was talking about in prison that they are really
Yeah.
looking. He is really active in doing prison reform.
Yeah.
He has a program that what's it called? Green Space. Green Space,
Okay.
and it's to help prisoners. Well, let me say this. When I took a course in law school, which was years and years ago, and so things have probably changed, but I was taught at that time that an outlaw has no rights. That is why he's an outlaw, because he is outside of the law.
Okay.
Things, have changed over the years, and so back to Lyle, he's trying to make this green space, which is a program that would provide, and it wouldn't take like a lot of funding. It would just be like a redoing of the prison system, where they could like plant trees in the prison yard,
Okay.
things like that, to help create an environment of a little more rehabilitation, because people that are in prison, they get out, and then they're used to these hard, cold steel walls with
Yeah.
not not much interaction with
Hmm.
people and all that kind of thing. So I think what they're trying to do is, just make jail a little more prison, a little more um, animal
Tolerable.
friendly. Yeah, yeah. And I know they have taken a lot of abuse prevention, violence prevention programs, classes like that. And it sounds like, or this is like talking, but it does sound to me like they really have done a lot of good. They get lots of letters from people who tell them about their pain, and
Really?
yes, and he encourages people to help them find their voice. And that happens a lot in domestic violence situations. You just kind of lose your voice. So he helps them, try to find their voice. He helps them try to realize that they do deserve love, regardless of their actions, that they do deserve love. And he's learned that he is a survivor, and he did what he had to do, or what he thought he had to
Right.
do to
Exactly.
survive.
Thought he had to do.
Yeah, and he had to come to the place where he had to realize that the abuse was not his fault. And that's so true of battered women in particular, because they just come to believe it's their fault and they deserve it and all this kind of stuff, which is not true.
Right. So, in that same token, the parole board is considering releasing them. And that's something that they have to consider. Are they a danger to society? So,
Right.
the question for them would be posed: did they do in their minds, in the Menendez brothers' minds, did they do what they feel like they had to do? Did they feel like their backs were against the wall? Or would they do they have the potential to kill again just because? Like that would be the question that would be posed to the
Right.
parole board. So how would you think that they would answer that? If you were in the parole board's shoes, what would be your thought process in that?
Well, I think I would look at the things that I just said of the steps that they are taking, prison reform and violence classes and the green space and all those kinds of things. I think, and another thing is that, they didn't just, they aren't, well, they are murderers, but they aren't like serial killers. I mean, what they
Okay.
did against their parents because of what was done to them. And it doesn't make it right. But I personally think if I were on the parole board, of course, I'm a softy at heart too.
Okay.
I would release them or at least, lessen the sentence.
Okay.
That's what
So
I
your thought, so based on you having a heart, you would release them based on the reforms that they've made since they've been in prison.
right, and not my heart. Right.
So not your heart.
I mean, I would try to take an honest look at it. And I think another thing we'd have to look at in this case, this particular case, especially since you have family members on both sides
Mm-hmm.
asking for their release. There are a couple holdouts I hear, but
Absolutely.
as a whole, members on both sides are asking for their release. So I think another thing you have to look at is the healing, not only for the brothers, but for the entire family. And, I'm not saying anybody who's in jail for domestic violence should be released to heal the family or
Right.
anything like that. But, because you have to take case by case. But I think in this case, that's really something to look at, which is just a whole thing about the whole domestic violence situation. People don't
Mm-hmm.
realize. Sometimes they think it's just between the husband and the wife or the
Yes.
partners or whatever. But especially if there are children around or involved, you have to look at the whole family. It's a whole family situation.
Now, speaking of domestic violence, you have authored a book. Tell us more about the book. What is the name of it? Where can we purchase that book?
Okay. Well, the name of the book is Healing Hidden Bruises. And here, if you don't mind me holding it up.
I don't mind. Okay. Healing Hidden Bruises. Okay.
It's available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, most places where you can get books. How to recover from the trauma of domestic abuse and coerced abortion. Because I know we're not talking about abortion today, but that does remind me of something. I personally believe that women who go through an abortion have become emotionally aborted first in their lifetime. And I
Really? Okay.
certainly believe that in this case, those boys, they're men now, but the boys at the time were definitely emotionally aborted. And so therefore, you know, they acted out. But back to my book. My book talks about the relationship between abortion and domestic violence
Okay.
because especially coerced abortion, because a lot of the abortions are coerced. So I talk about another famous case in there, which some of the younger viewers, again, may not be familiar with, but the Bobbitts. That whole thing was kind of based on the anniversary of an abortion, etc. I have a lot of court notes and whatever on that. So anyway, bottom line, the book is about the connection between abortion and domestic violence, recovery of the trauma of it, um, steps we can take. It's not only my story, it's the story of three or four other ladies who both went through this journey, had these issues in their lives, and how they recovered. And the one thing we all have in common was we were believers in God, and we believed that He helped us through it. Which I would say of Eric and Lyle too. I have no clue what their personal belief system is, but I truly believe God can restore. And even as we were talking about Lyle in particular and all these programs that he's doing in prison,
Hmm.
it comes back around. I mean,
Yeah.
or it can, you know, because like in my life, I had these traumatic experiences, but I've been able to walk through healing and turn it around and try to help others. And I believe that's what's happening to Lyle. Um, Whether or not, like I say, I have no idea of his religious background or whatever, but even if he isn't a believer in God, God just still works in mysterious ways a lot of
He
times
most
to
certainly does.
he wants us to go or where he wants us to be.
Yeah. Now, do you have a website for your book or just, they can purchase at Amazon and Barnes and Noble?
I do have a website. It's healinghiddenbruises.com. Email at info@healinghiddenbruises.com. You can reach me that way
Awesome.
too. Yeah.
Awesome. So the viewers have multiple ways to reach you. They can purchase your book, they can email you, they can go to your website. There are multiple ways to reach Miss Arlene. So there's no reason for them to not get your book or reach out to you if that's what they want to do.
Hmm. Correct.
Now, if any of our listeners are battling with domestic violence or coerced abortion issues, any of those types of issues, what would be your advice to them right now?
Well, my advice, first of all, is safety first. Safety always comes first. Do not leave a situation if you are in danger or in danger of becoming stalked. You need to have a safety plan first.
Okay.
Definitely. That's number one. Safety first. I think I have dealt with a lot of women who feel that they're very guilty about their abortion afterward.
Mm,
And a lot of women are under coercion of, get an abortion or I'll leave. Well, in hopes
mm,
of saving the relationship, they go ahead and have the abortion, even though they personally don't really want to. And
yeah.
then more than likely, the relationship falls apart anyway. So if you're in a situation of your partner or whoever is trying to coerce you into having it, you need to stick with your own, because a woman who has an abortion gives away part of herself.
Mm,
And um, it just, there's a lot of trauma that goes with it. Uh, and long term effects that you never think of. Like, for instance, in my case, the two children I aborted were my only chance to ever bear children, because my second
no.
abortion ended in hysterectomy. So, therefore, I not only do I not have children, I will not have grandchildren. So, and a lot of people do not realize there is physical damage that takes place in your body um, in an abortion. So there's a lot to consider. A lot to consider. Unfortunately, a lot of women are not given good options or you know things like that. But there is help out there. Crisis pregnancy centers or crisis resource centers are a very good place. They will help you, and I guess keep the faith. Even if you are
Yeah.
not a person of faith, there is still a God that sees, and He is not happy. He did not make you to be abused, to be hurt, to be emotionally abused, mentally abused.
Hmm.
He sees, and if you cry out to Him, He will make a way of escape. I
Wow.
definitely believe that.
I'm very sorry to hear that, Arlene. Wow. And what is interesting is that your story is several other women's story. That's the interesting part about it. A lot of women they might not talk about it. You might see them. It could be your coworker, it could be your friend, it could be your sister, and you not even know it. But that could be their same story. So
Exactly.
again, I applaud you for sharing because those could be the scars that they're carrying and you not even know it.
Hmm. Yes.
So that's amazing that you're able to share your story because just you telling your story and then giving the listeners tips could help somebody else to not be in that same situation if they don't want to be. Because it's one thing for you to make up your mind and that's your decision, but it's another for someone else to make up your mind for you. So that's huge in itself.
Yes, and even with the Menendez brothers, if you go back to that, they have had an impact on society because
Yes,
back in
they have.
'89, when all this happened,
Hmm.
as we discussed earlier, if it had been
Yeah.
girls being raped, society could accept that.
Yes.
And another example would be the Me Too movement, is now
Yes.
taking place.
Yep.
So and with the Menendez brothers being thrown into the limelight, perhaps male sexual abuse will come to light.
Absolutely. Because it doesn't matter your gender, you can still be a victim. You can still be abused. And it could be someone your age that can abuse you. It could be someone older that can abuse you. It could be a family member, it could be a friend. Abuse has no name, it has no boundaries. That's why it's abuse. So I agree with that 100%. Just because it's your family member, quote unquote, that doesn't mean that they did not abuse you. And I feel like everybody should be believed because a lot of times people are scarred because the next person doesn't believe them. Like they cry out to somebody that they trust and they don't believe them. And I feel like that in itself scars people. And then they don't talk about it anymore. And that's a missed opportunity right there.
Yes, and I believe, and with the Menendez brothers, they had told Kitty, their mother, they had told her back in the '70s, and she basically did nothing about it.
Yeah.
And I don't know the story behind her, but you have to ask yourself, was she maybe being also abused by her
True.
husband? And maybe
True.
that's why she didn't speak out. I don't know.
Yeah, we definitely don't know.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing too. If a person is being abused as well, they might be fearful of retaliation. So that's something too. You definitely don't know. They might be fearful of what could happen to them, or they could fear that the abuse could get worse.
Yes.
So it could be a double edged sword in that regard. So you definitely don't know. And it's hard to assume because guess what? We are not in their shoes. So we definitely don't want to say, this could have been that or that she should have done this. We definitely don't want to do that. We just want to help the people that we can help and give the tips to the people that we can give tips to. So hopefully, potentially, they can get themselves out, and make better choices. So for all yeah, for all of the listeners, I would love if you could drop in the chat box, make comments. What do you think should be the outcome for the Menendez brothers? Do you think the parole board should release them? Do you think that the parole board should give them the 50 years? What do you think should be the outcome for the Menendez brothers? Do you think they should stay in for life? What do you think should be the outcome? So that's three different scenarios: life, resentencing to 50 years, or just get out now. Those three different options. Please drop in the bottom in the box below what should be the outcome for the Menendez brothers. Arlene, I want to thank you so much for being my special guest today. You provided us with so much insight. The listeners are going to be able to tell anybody that they encounter if they're having that same situation. They're going to be able to give them so many tips. Or if they're suffering from this same situation, they're going to be able to get themselves to safety and then find ways to break themselves out of this vicious cycle. So thank you so much for being my special guest today.
And thank you very much for having me. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And for everyone out there, if you have not already done so, please like, subscribe, and share Criminal Justice Corner. Please tell a friend to tell a friend about this episode and the podcast. And we will see you on the next episode of Criminal Justice Corner. Thank you.